Alright, so now that we have our HTML template finished, we're going to get into the actual CodeIgniter application. And what I'd like to start with is the template, alright, or the view. When I say view and template or layout, they're basically all the same thing. Alright, so like I said, when you go to a CodeIgniter application, when you type the URL in, you're going to a controller. And you can set a default controller, which by default when you install CodeIgniter is the welcome controller, and that's what we see now. So we're seeing this on the home page, but it can also be accessed like this because we want the controller name here. Alright, now you can easily implement a view inside of a controller. Alright, so let's just open up the welcome controller. So basically, there's a lot of comments here. Don't let that overwhelm you. There's only a couple lines of code. Alright, so basically what we're doing here is creating an index function inside of our welcome controller. Alright, and the index is basically the default function that gets called. So that's what we're viewing right here. We could also just say /index. And that's going to bring us to the same page. And like I said before, that's how this structure works. It goes controller, function, and then if you want to pass parameters in, you can do that. If you want to pass in a 1, if in fact the index controller takes a parameter. But we could also say public function test, and we could just say echo test. Alright, if we save that and then we go to the welcome controller test function, it's gonna do whatever we have in the test function. Alright, so this makes it really easy to create an application or website structure. So that's one of the great things about using a framework like this. Alright, so let's get rid of that. Now, obviously, we don't want to echo out stuff from the controller. You definitely don't want to do that. The view is what's used to display content to the user through the browser. Alright, and we can easily load a view with this load view, and then we pass in the name of the file, the view file. And if we go to views, you'll see we have our welcome message, and that's what's being output. Okay? So it's actually really easy once you fully understand how it works. Now, what I like to do and what most people do is create a simple layout system where we'll have some include files like we've been doing this whole time. We use like a header file and a footer file, and then just include it in our view file. So that's what we're going to do. But first I want to get rid of this welcome controller. Alright, so let's go to controllers, and we're going to create a new file, and this is going to be called products.php. Alright, and this is going to be our product controller. Alright, so what we want to do here is say, actually we'll start here, and I'm going to say class products, okay, with a capital P. Your classes should be capital, but to use a controller in CodeIgniter, we need to say extends CI underscore controller, and that's the base controller for CodeIgniter. And you need to include this. Alright, so you just want to put extends CI controller. When we create our model, you need to extend CI model. Alright, so in here, let's see, what do we want to do? We'll create an index function. Alright, and just to test it out, I'm just going to say echo products. Okay, so now on the front end we should be able to go to the gaming place /products, and takes us to the index function. So what I want to do is I want to make the products controller our default controller, so that when we just go to our application URL, we'll see it. Alright, so we can easily do that if we go to the config folder and then routes. I believe it's routes. Alright, so right here we have a default controller, welcome. We just want to change this to products. Save that, and then if we reload, we get our products controller. So MVC is just a great design pattern, in my opinion, and it's really easy once you get the hang of it. Alright, so obviously for our home page or our products controller, we don't want to just echo out stuff. We want to load a view. Alright, but like I said, I like to have kind of a template system, so this is how we're going to load views in this application. Basically, when you load a view, you can say this load view. Alright, and what we're going to put in here is our main layout. Alright, well, first let me just show you that you can call a view, of course. We can say products if that's a view, and then we want a second parameter, and that's going to be a data array, so we can pass data into the view. Alright, let me just, I guess I'll just go with this for a second. So let me save this and then go into the views folder, create a new file called products.php, and this is going to be our view. Alright, so let's we'll just say this is the products view. Alright, and we're loading it here, so let's save that and then reload. And what's going on is it's showing our template, but we just have an undefined variable data. That's because we haven't created anything yet inside of the data array. But it's easily, we could just do this. We could say data, let's just say data name is equal to Mike. Alright, so what we can do here, what we are doing is passing in the data array to the view, and we can access this name variable like this. Let's say echo name. Save it, and we get Mike. Alright, so this is very similar to our last project where we created a template class, and we could pass in values to the template or the view. Alright, so it's very similar. But like in our last project, we don't want to have our doc type and our head HTML head info in every single view. So we want to create, inside of the views folder, create a new folder and call it includes, and then inside of there we'll create a new file, call it header.php, and we're also going to create footer.php, and I'm also going to create sidebar.php. Alright, and then inside of the actually, you know what, this structures, I actually want to create a folder called layout inside of the views folder, or layouts, and I want to move that includes into the layouts folder. Alright, so that's in there. I can delete this one. Alright, so inside the layouts folder, I'm going to create a new file and call it main.php. And in this main.php file, we're going to load our header and footer. So I'm going to paste this in. Alright, so all we're doing here is loading a view inside a view. Okay, it's going to give us our header and footer, and then we want to display the main body as well. Okay, so we'll paste this in, and we're just loading a view with a variable called main content, and we're going to define this inside of our controller. Alright, and this will make it so that we can have the header and footer in all of our views, and we don't have to actually type it out in every single view. Alright, so I'm going to save this, and that's it. That's it for main.php. Header, main content, footer. Now back in our products controller, we're going to do this a little different. We're going to load the view, but we're going to load our main layout. Alright, so this is going to say layouts / main. This should be an L. Alright, so that's going to load the main layout, but what about the products view, which is right here? I'm actually going to get rid of the welcome message view. We still want the products view as well, so right above this, what we're going to do is include that variable, that main content that you saw in the main PHP file, and we're going to set it to whatever we want the view, which in this case is products. So this will give us the products view, but it'll also load the header and the footer. Alright, so if we save this and reload, we get the same thing. We just get Mike, but we're also including the header. Okay, so we can say this is the header, save that, I don't know why it's saying check. That's kind of weird. Let's see if, let me just close this out. Let me go back in header. This is the header. Alright, so I saved it, reload, and you can see that now the header is being read into the view. So the header is where we're going to put our HTML head area. Alright, so let's actually grab that from our HTML. Okay, so we'll go into the TGP HTML folder, and I'm going to open up index, and we just want to grab the code that we want to include in every single view. Alright, and that's going to be from panel body right here. I believe that's where yeah, so from this panel body all the way to the top, I'm going to copy and paste that in the header. Okay, if we save that, and now over here if we reload, you can see that the header is being read in, and the header file also includes the sidebar stuff for now. We're actually going to create our own sidebar file, but for now it's just in the header. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing but with the footer. So in our index HTML, we want to go all the way down from the ending HTML tag, and we're going to grab it up until this row where you see the row. So basically it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divs above the row class here. Alright, so let's copy that and put that in footer and save that, and that's all we should need with footer. Alright, so sidebar, let's open that up and go back to header, and we just want to grab all the sidebar content. So we're going to go from this cart block div. Let's go down, and let's see, I want to go down to this UL. Alright, so cart block div down to the UL. Basically everything that's in this column 4 div, because that's actually the entire sidebar. So we'll cut that out. I'm going to paste it inside of sidebar.php, save that, close it, and then all we need to do is include that file inside of header.php where we cut it out of. Alright, so we're just going to paste in this load view, and we're going to point to that sidebar file. Okay, so let's save that, And I'm going to change this latest releases header. I'm just going to change it to the gaming place for now. You can make this dynamic so that it changes on every page, or you could just leave it with a general title like that. Okay, so let's save header. Now if we go back, one second, what's this? Layouts include sidebar. Oh, we forgot the, well, I forgot the D in sidebar. Alright, that should fix that. Alright, so we have our header, we have our products view, and then the footer. So you can see that the CSS is not included here, so we need to do that. So let's go to, you want to go to the application. So in my case it's in my C drive, XAMPP, htdocs, the gaming place. Actually what we want to do here is create a new folder in the root and call it assets. Alright, and this is going to hold our publicly accessible documents like our CSS files, our images, things like that. Alright, so in assets, let's do CSS and images, and then what we want to do is bring over from our HTML folder, we want to bring over our CSS files. Alright, and also let's also create a JavaScript folder as well and bring over that bootstrap JavaScript file. And then in images, I'm actually going to create a folder in images and call it products, because this is where all of our games or product images will be held. Okay, I think that's good. Now in order to include them in our header file, the CSS files here, we need to point it to the right place. Alright, so in CodeIgniter there's a global function you can use, you can echo out, called base_URL. And basically this is going to give us whatever our base URL is. In my case, the base URL is localhost / the gaming place. I'm sorry, actually this is going to actually include the application directory as well, I believe. Oh no, so that's wrong. So it's going to our root, and then we want to go in our assets and then in CSS. Okay, so right after this we're going to say assets /CSS. Now you don't need to put a slash here like this, because the base URL function actually includes the slash, so you don't need that. So let's copy this, and we want to do the same thing with our custom file. Alright, and that should now load the CSS, or not. Alright, so call to undefined function base URL. And the reason this is happening is we haven't loaded the URL helper. Okay, so CodeIgniter has a bunch of helpers that we're going to use, but you need to load them. And I'm not going to load them manually inside of our controller. I'm going to go to our autoload config file, which is in config autoload, and then down here, actually we have a bunch of stuff we want to put in here. So in this area, this array, the autoload helper, okay, we want to put the helpers that we want to use, which is URL. We're also going to use the form validation helper, and what else? I think we're going to use the HTML helper. Alright, and then for libraries, for now let's do the database library. Session, we're going to use the session library. and I guess we can leave it like that for now. I'm sure there's more we'll need to add later. So if we save that, reload, alright, so we're not using form validation right now, so it's giving us, maybe that's not how it is, how you write it. I'm just going to take these out for now until we actually need them. So just the URL helper. Same thing with the session. Let's just get rid of that for now. Alright, so here is our entire view. You can see we have the header, and then the main products view is just placed inside of the main area. Alright, the sidebar is coming from that sidebar.php file. So we have our template completely set up, and all we need to do with different views is include them in our controller, and then they'll show up in this main area.